Welcome back to the Amateur Hour Sports Podcast. My name is Jacob, and as you saw in the title, talking about the biggest snubs from the NBA All-Star team, and I have 5 snubs that I want to talk about. 5 big snubs of players who should be in, and I'm going to give you the player that should not be in and replace them. So we're going to get into it right away. We are firstly going to be talking about the Amateur Hour Sports Podcast favorite player, Jason Tatum, was selected as an All-Star. I was a strong advocate that he should not be an All-Star because Jaylen Brown should be an All-Star. Jaylen Brown is better than Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown is the second best player on the Boston Celtics, ahead of Jason Tatum. If you look statistically speaking, Jason Tatum is way less efficient. The only reason he has 21.5 points per game compared to 20.5 for Jaylen Brown is because he shoots the ball an extra 3 times per game, much less efficient than Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is shooting almost 50% from the field, 38% from 3, and he's shooting 75% from the line, which could definitely be better, but Jason Tatum shooting 43%, then he's shooting from 3, 36%, and then from the line, this is where it's better for him, 84%. But 21.5 points per game on 18 shots compared to 20.5 points per game on 15 shots for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is much more efficient in his play. He doesn't hog the touches. I mean, I wouldn't say Jason Tatum hogs them, but Jason Tatum requires a lot more touches, disrupts the set a little bit more, kind of has to play that ISO hero ball in mid-range in order to get his points, whereas Jaylen Brown is better, taking it to the cup, better spot-up shooter. He's better creating better-looking shots than Jason Tatum. Honestly, this isn't a huge one. I can see why Jason Tatum got in. I just don't feel as though he earned that spot over Jaylen Brown. And before I get any criticism as to front court versus back court, by the end of everything I'm telling you, there will be 4 backcourt players and 3 front court players in the reserves, which is what it already looks like in the West. Right now in the East, the way it actually panned out, it's 4 front court players and 3 backcourt players. So I'm just going to flip that for the East, but I'm going to keep it the same for the West. Before I get any sort of talk about balancing the positions. I am balancing the positions. I am taking into account, as you will see, because this is just the first one. I have another 2 for the East, and I have 2 more in the West. So that's the first one. Jaylen Brown is the second best player on the Boston Celtics. He should be an All-Star over Jason Tatum. That's the first one on my list. The efficiency is key here. Just better for your team to have Jaylen Brown than Jason Tatum. Moving on, second thing I just want to touch on, this isn't a snub. There's a lot of criticism for Kyle Lowry getting selected for the All-Star team. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Kyle Lowry has been an absolute stud this season. 20 points per game. He's shooting decently well. He's not shooting great, to be honest, but what he's doing on offense is so important in watching the Raptors' success this season. There are more players that deserve to get booted than Kyle Lowry. One of them is Ben Simmons, who is my next one. Bradley Beal was absolutely robbed of an All-Star spot this year. Bradley Beal was completely daylight robbery. 29 points per game, or just under that. Shooting 45% from the field, 32.5 from 3, which isn't great. But with the team he's on, the amount of work this guy's putting in, 21 shots a game, putting up almost 30 points per game. Crazy numbers, which is unbelievable. I get that the Washington Wizards aren't performing well and that their defense is comical. It's awful defense, but the work that Bradley Beal is putting in on offense definitely trumps 17, 8, and 8 from Ben Simmons. Has only shot 5 threes this season because he's just so stubborn, a complete refusal to shoot threes off Ben Simmons. Definitely Bradley Beal is ahead of Ben Simmons. I've been an advocate. I've gotten into a lot of arguments on social media regarding how Ben Simmons should not be an All-Star because there are better shooting candidates. Ben Simmons has not been the player he's supposed to be, and even without that, like, obviously not comparing it to past selves or potential future selves. Looking at the stats, like, what's tremendously impressive about 16.7 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 8.2 assists. It's decently impressive, but Bradley Beal's putting up almost 29 points per game. He has to be an all-star with those kind of numbers, and I think that Ben Simmons' name just kind of puts him in, and I don't really understand why. I get that his defense is way better, but man, over the way Bradley Beal's been playing, I just cannot see it, and that's a big snub for me. The third snub in the East is Zach LaVine making it in for Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton, second time being an all-star. He was better this season than last season, putting up 20 points per game, 50% shooting, 44 from 3. Good numbers, very good numbers. This is not a huge snub, but Zach LaVine, the Chicago player playing in Chicago, putting up 25 points per game, 44% from the field, 38% from 3, which is very good for the amount that Zach LaVine has to shoot the ball. Shooting the ball almost 20 times a game, but this guy, he's doing it pretty efficiently. He's good from the line. So much that he has to do to run that Chicago Bulls offense. We know that the deficiencies that they have, but man, the way Zach LaVine's been playing this season, he has been great. And this is not a huge one, but Zach LaVine is better than Chris Middleton and has been better than Chris Middleton this season. I don't really understand that one too much. Zach LaVine had to be an all-star over Chris Middleton this year. That's a sad one to see. Moving on to the West, the biggest snub, the single biggest snub of All-Star Weekend, or of All-Star 2020. Devin Booker shooting 51% from the field, 36 plus from 3, 92 from the line, almost 50-40-90, 27 points, 6.4 assists. And Chris Paul, who only has 0.2 assists more at 6.6, and 10 less points while shooting worse from the field, worse from 3, worse from the line. We talk about Chris Paul's playmaking ability. He only has 6.6 assists compared to Devin Booker's 6.4. And I get that Chris Paul's a good defender. Chris Paul is a good defender, but Devin Booker, the way this guy's been playing, it's unbelievable. This guy's been robbed continuously over his all-star appearance. I can't understand. Like, Devin Booker should be in here ahead of Brandon Ingram, Donovan Mitchell, Russell Westbrook, and Chris Paul. But Chris Paul is the worst of that bunch. Devin Booker 100% had to be in here ahead of those guys. I can't believe it. Like, it's been a couple days, so the complete fury and rage that took over my body about some of these selections, it isn't quite here anymore. But I honestly can't believe, like, Devin Booker is a waterfall from the perimeter. This guy is such a good shooter, so good at scoring, good playmaker. I cannot believe that he did not make the All-Star team. I can't believe that Chris Paul made it. And you want to talk about, you need a better record to make the All-Star team and how that is what is important. Well, I'll raise you this. Brandon Ingram is an All-Star on a team with a worse record than the Phoenix Suns. So it can't be about that, because Brandon Ingram's an all-star, and Devin Booker has better stats than Brandon Ingram. So how on earth is Chris Paul the all-star ahead of Devin Booker? If you want to talk about winning, how the hell is Devin Booker not an all-star ahead of Brandon Ingram? How did he get voted in before Devin Booker? It does not make sense. Again, complete daylight robbery. I cannot believe Devin Booker is not an all-star. I really feel for him. Completely disrespected by the NBA, because he's putting up insane numbers. He should have been rewarded this year. I don't know if Chris Paul has a name, but man, that guy should not be an all-star. I really feel for Devin Booker here. Moving on to the final snub, another big one. Karl Anthony Towns is not an all-star, but Rudy Gobert is an all-star. Karl Anthony Towns, 27 points per game, 51 from the field, 40 from 3, 40 plus from 3. Very impressive. Rudy Gobert, 15.6 points. He's got 14.5 rebounds compared to Towns' 11 rebounds a game. And we know Gobert is a better defender, definitely much better defender. Karl-Anthony Towns is a great defender, but the numbers that Karl-Anthony Towns has been putting up, and it's just a case of being biased towards the winning teams, which I understand to a degree, but man, the way Cat's been playing, at some point the stats have to trump winning because the stats are just so much better than Rudy Gobert's that you can't, like, I don't know if it's because Rudy Gobert cried last year because he wasn't an All-Star and people felt bad, but this is bad. This is a bad selection. Not taking Karl-Anthony Towns to his third straight All-Star game, even though he's having a better season than the last 2 years, like much better. Like, he's shooting the ball 8 times per game from 3, and he's shooting 40%. That is ridiculous for a guy of his size. He is putting up crazy numbers. It's not his fault that the team's struggling so much. So that's the end of this episode. Thank you for listening. If you disagree with my takes, you can let me know. Let me know what you disagree on. Let me know who you think should have been an All-Star if I didn't get to them. But don't tell me DeRozan should have been an All-Star. And if you do, tell me kind of where you could fit. Oh, you know what? DeRozan could have been ahead of Westbrook. Yeah, now that I think about that, DeRozan could have been an All-Star over Westbrook. Okay, you could argue that. I don't think so, but you could definitely argue that. Let me know anyways on Twitter or Instagram at AmateurPDC. You can comment on the YouTube video. Like the video if you liked it there. Subscribe as well if you want to stick up with the content. Follow on Spotify. And as usual, we post every single day. So keep coming back for that daily content. Who doesn't want to have a daily sports podcast? We will see you again tomorrow.